single mainstream trade publication since then, to the point where I started the Gillmor game basically to try and destroy those remaining publications, which I think I've been successful at. But, what I was seeing was the absolute lack of a difference between the blogosphere and the tweet sphere and the original mainstream media. That's why I'm at Salesforce now. I think that Chatter, we're going to be able to build out a media platform based on that. And I think it's going to work in the record business, it's going to work in the film business, the television business, all sorts of things which I've, dabbled in throughout my career. So I think I'm uniquely positioned to do that, and I think Mark Benioff is also uniquely positioned to be able to harness in a collaborative way around a certain consensus around something which, when I hear, well, we got to have fun, I cringe at that intellectually, but honestly, that is how things happen, I think. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a question. I loved your comment that once we begin to engage and collaborate with particular affinity groups, that will drive great value for producers and businesses. And Spectrum DNA is organized around the idea of affinity groups and social niche works, if you will. And I agree with you that it seems that we're all in a broadcast mode, that I'm going to broadcast on Twitter or on my blog or wherever else, and I'm going to leave it up to the user to filter on the read end. And I think to your point, once we begin to filter on the right end of that, and we're speaking to a particular group rather than just broadcasting out to everybody, and I got to filter the good from, baby made a poopy today, that becomes really difficult for me, and I tend to just turn the whole thing off. So can you speak to how much of that you think is a behavioral change that will come, that we start speaking to specific affinity groups, and how much of it is a technical hurdle that we don't have those tools yet?
Well, I think we have the tools. I don't think this is a technical problem. I mean, from what I've heard from John, the battles he fights are all about politics and, understanding and trying to remap people's, intuitive response to technology and see how that relates to what they do and think in the real world. The technologies here are enormously powerful. I mean, why would Twitter have stopped track? Do you really buy the idea that it's because they couldn't support the system? Well, at the time, sure, they couldn't keep the system running regardless of whether track was on. But at this point, they've sold off the stream to at least 5 major vendors, and purportedly are making it available to all sorts of third parties. That's not what's stopping that from happening. What's stopping it from happening is a confusion about what the business model is. The thing about affinity groups that I think is really important to understand is that they are incredibly powerful economic engines. If you have, this is what you're playing with here. You look up there, you find a consensus, you develop an engine, a context engine, which you can then build out around the word cascading isn't quite right, an emerging set of affinity groups that overlap and produce value just because they're not broadcasting, they're narrowcasting, they're streamcasting, whatever that term is that we are at the threshold of being able to harness. Those, just on an advertising level, the lead gen off of a qualified audience is 20, 30 times the value of throwing a needle into the haystack and then trying to find it again. So once these affinity groups become even subtly aware of themselves, you'll see content and information and politics start to emerge around those architectures. And that's going to, that's what Obama did. He figured out that the caucuses were the way to get to, to establish control. And, that sort of micro-community focus we're going to see play out here.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how competition affects collaboration. And I think about these affinity groups and that they care so much about something that they all share, that they want to collaborate around it, but how does competition come in if it's in too early?
Well, the problem is, in my view, is incentivizing competition. I don't think that there's a problem with competition and collaboration. I think that it's a fuel for collaboration and vice versa. But you don't see a lot of competition for this. Right now we see, Facebook and Twitter going at each other. That's not competition. That has nothing to do with these dynamics that we're talking about here. Jobs and Android. Now there's a real crucible of competition that's being affected, and it's driving both of them. In my view, Google is a partner of Apple. Absolutely, stone cold partner. They are so not at war with each other. They may, get frustrated on a day-to-day basis with each other, but they're, when Apple, cracks the cartel, the way that I forget who did with the cigarette manufacturers by finding a weak one and basically, ponying up to that guy and saying, I'll give you exclusive rights to not go to jail in return for, et cetera. That's what Apple did with AT&T, and now we're seeing the benefits of it. It's not a complete stone cold win, because that's why I thought that the situation with Verizon is basically saying, okay, now hold on a second, but it's inexorable because Google can win simply by making a better phone than the Nexus One. The problem is that the fragmentation of the market is Jobs' opportunity to come in and smash them, and he's going to do so. He's going to party on the fragmentation of the market. People may say that the iPhone and the iPad are a closed system, but compared to the closed system of having alleged open technologies, which never happen because of the inability to be able to force the carriers into compliance. Is that open? I don't think that's any more open. In fact, in some ways, it's less open than what Apple's doing.
I think you just pointed to the difference, though. It's that it's understanding your shared common interest and compete in using competition to produce better and better tools.
I think that's what's going on.
What we're seeing with the Google Apple thing is that it's actually a different type of competition that's not in good.
I don't agree. I think that it's extremely innovative.
What they're doing, the competition.
It's driving incredibly quickly. Just take a look at this thing. I just did a whole presentation with it. I sat there and put the presentation together in about 20 minutes. Granted, I had nothing to say, but it was easy to do. And there's something very freeing about that. The bottom line with the iPad is it's got 10 hours of battery. No matter what I look at, I've got this crap PC that Salesforce gave me that I just despise. I haven't been on Windows in 10 years since InfoWorld fired me, and I've got my MacBook Air, which I love to death. I never use either of them. I carry them around like it's some sort of touchstone. I'm going to find out something that I can't leave it behind. This thing, it just keeps running. I've been running it all day. 61% battery. It's got another 6 hours on it. That's going to win. It's going to continue to win. It's a big battery with a screen. That's all this thing is. But